Hello, welcome to another episode of FreeCodeSession. My name is Jason Bach, and we're going to keep going on with this LOL code cleanup. I think what I'm going to do is start with this one, move the standard LOL stuff into here. Then we'll change the name to compiler and compiler tests. And I also want to change the namespace along with them. This will come along with this one. This one I probably will separate out, and then we'll change this. I think I can get all that done in a half an hour. I think. Maybe. Possibly. Alright, so standard LOL into this. So that should actually be easy now. Yep. Yep. Make sure we do that. Okay, and then I keep forgetting I gotta okay. Test.lol. Oh, I bet it's, yeah, I bet. Yep, okay. Okay, cool. So that did that. If I come back here, this and this, those shouldn't even be needed anymore. Build clean. I love that I'm actually running an executable because my tests are no longer testing anything. Okay. Alright, so that is actually good. So we got rid of that. Okay. And if I come back here, edit, so done. Okay, so now we're going to change the names. Do I want to keep, I mean, the project name, and I get the solution is lolcode.net. The projects and the namespaces and everything, that doesn't seem right to me. I guess it doesn't to me. I think they should just be compiler, and this should be compiler tests. At least that, in my infinite wisdom, which is finite, seems to make sense to me. Is it assembly name? Yeah, LOL code compiler, and then we want the default namespace. Wait, isn't there something with namespace in here? Root namespace. Yeah, that's it. And we want that to be this as well. Okay, and then we also want to come into here, edit that. We kind of want the same thing. Compiler. Okay, this is something that I wish Visual Studio would, like you could rename the folder along with it. So while we're here, let's actually call this LOL code. And we want to have the same stuff. Except this is going to be called that. I think that should be decent enough. Okay. What I want to do now, though, is I want to close this, unfortunately. we have to do a little hacky-McHack stuff here, which is the solution can stay that, but now I got to come into here and say, edit that. Close that out. Get that in there. I think we can just do that. Yeah. This we actually want to call compiler. This we want to call compile. No, not all that, just that. And this we want to call LOL code. Oh, I've got the... Okay. All right, so let's come back in here. You know, I read somewhere that somebody was actually looking at making like a .sln proj file format. This format just stinks. It really, really does. Let's compile our tests. No, these are not. These are now compiler. And then this one is in, yep. Okay. Now I think though I've got to come in here. Oops, no. I could edit these within Visual Studio, but no, that doesn't ever reference anything anymore. What? Oh no! That's, we gotta make sure that that's actually tests. Yeah, that's gotta be tests. Wait a minute. Why would I have? Oh, it's right there. Oh, that's the. Okay, I got it. I can learn. Okay, so this is. Okay, and then this one is referencing that, except it should be this. All right. Get my little Kalahari cup. My water. Did it all load? Yes. Does it all compile? Yes. Bug. Yep. Okay. LOL. No. That is actually not true. And let's actually make sure of that. Now we should only see that. Okay, so now it's LOL code test.lol test. Boom. Okay. Wow, that looks really weird. It's like the light above me, which is straight above me. It's like giving me this kind of like Jacob's ladder kind of light look above me. It's kind of like angelic. I don't know. And then there's a light behind me, so if I do like this, anyway. All right, where was I? Got distracted. Let's close this and this. Yeah, I totally forgot what it was. Oh yeah, this is actually using bad words in it. So I want to make sure that I'm not using bad words. All right, so what am I going to do next? Let's edit this. And this is done. This is done. And this is done. So guess what? I think that's all done. This one we're going to change and make a separate issue. Do I really want to chance this and start changing a lot of these namespaces? I do. I really do. But and the point of what I'm trying to make here is I think what I'm going to do is put in two new issues. One which is change namespaces so that the namespaces are correct, and then start cleaning the code up with better names. So there'll be another kind of a further up cleanup thing here. It works now. I've got pretty much all this done, but I don't want to screw it up too much for my demo. And yeah, this is all a branch, and I can just use master if I wanted to. But I think this is a good point to stop. So let me do that. I don't know why I'm fetching origin. All right, so let's go to master. And then let's make sure that we're merging the current branch. Come on. Merge. Is this remerged? Push it. And of course, by doing that, now master is all cleaner. Much cleaner. Very good. Okay. We're going to say that this is closed. Okay, but before I do that, no, I already did it. Let's come back into here. Let's say delete it. And reload. And delete all that. Build that one more time with feeling. No, 70 no, 53 yes. Boom, pow, we are good. Okay, so last thing I want to do is come into here and let's go back to issues. Got a lot more tests. Ain't that the truth? Better names. Wait. What the? I have no idea what I did there. Okay. It has magic values, poorly named variables, etc. Lots of types in one file, etc. Clean this up. Though the lots of types in one file, I don't know, let's keep it this way. This could, this is very subjective, very subjective. And then we're going to do a new issue, change namespaces to correct. Namespaces should be either LOL code, LOL code compiler, or because I think some of the statements that's in that one file, I saw that last night, those should all be put into their own. So solve that and that, and submit new issue. Okay, so that's good. And then I think when I get back from CodeMash, I'm going to do a little bit more work on this, along with eventually getting back to Dub Sharp and moving on from there. And one other thing I want to talk about real quick, which is an interesting thing I mentioned a while ago. One of the things I wanted to do along with Dub Sharp is working on this thing called Ystari, which was going to be this like new modern version of CSLA, written for like 2019 and beyond. Long story short, I've had some discussions with Rocky and another guy that's been working on some prototypes, Keith, with the idea of putting all this stuff actually into CSLA and looking at ways to eventually, like, evolutionary type of approach to CSLA of adding these things in and then starting to remove things from it in a graceful kind of way. That's kind of the idea, and it makes sense because CSLA is it's got a name for good, bad. I know some people absolutely hate it. I think there are some good things at its core, and we had this meeting today about this whole notion of like, what do we actually do as this inflection point? Because when I come back from CodeMash, this is where I want to start doing some stuff on it. And so I wasn't really that thrilled about saying, hey, let's looking at putting this in CSLA, because, I mean, for many reasons, one of them being, if you put in a new idea to do some feature, that's a better way, but then you keep in the old way of doing it, now you have this kind of tension and possible issues with permutations of how to do the same thing in different ways. It can start to become problematic, and I wasn't really interested in going, hey, we could do this better, but then you got to leave this cruft in there. No, I'm not really interested in that. The interesting thing, though, is at the end of the conversation, Rocky brought up an interesting point, which is, well, we could bring in these new things and eventually phase out some ways of doing things right now. And so like, this is just completely off the cuff. Let's say, I'm going to be really pseudo-coding here. One of the things that's always bothered me about CSLA is that you have this thing like this. Because that's pseudocode. But the point is that if you want to do the fetch operation, you have to create a method with this well-known name. So if you do that, it's going to compile, but it's not going to work in CSLA. And so we've had some ideas in terms of how do you actually say this is my method, the operation for the fetch implementation in CSLA. And not using well-known names, maybe using attributes, maybe using some type of registration process, but something that we think is much cleaner, much faster, gets rid of reflection, well-known names, blah, 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 all that stuff. But then you keep this in here. So one thing that we're just briefly discussed is saying, hey, if you see this, then maybe you should do that little smudgy thing. Create an analyzer that's just like informational or whatever, that tells you there's a better way to do it. And then transform this into the new approach, whatever it is, as an offering, as a code fix. It's not an error. It's not even a warning. It just tells you, hey, there's a new way of doing it. And then in the next version, you start marking something as like obsolete. Now, this would be hard because you can't make this obsolete. But what you'd actually maybe do then is make the analyzer a warning and saying, hey, you better upgrade this, you better change this, because in the next version, this ain't going to work anymore. And then the next change is, hey, if you do this, like if we find something like this, we're just going to tell them, nope, this ain't going to work anymore, you got to change it. But having those as analyzers makes that fix much easier. So that is actually far more appealing, because that gets me excited about analyzers, and that actually spawns something in my head to say, you know what? In .NET you've had this, like if you've ever wanted to obsolete something, you can start saying, hey, in this version it's going to be obsolete, and now that we have semantic versioning, if you do like 5.0 or something, that makes it actually, you're saying there's a breaking change in there. But the point is that you can put an obsolete attribute on, but you can say it's a warning, and then you can say it's an error, and then the compiler will tell you something about it. But there's no help for you with an obsolete attribute. Doing it with analyzers gives you a lot more capability to start phasing out old ways of doing things, giving the developer a lot more aid and assistance into fixing these things, having a gentler approach, so to speak. It's just a better approach overall. And it's not to say you don't use obsolete. I mean, at some point, you go through, I think, that obsolescence process, and when you actually kill off the member. Because I get, like, with the team with C# that they have been pretty adamant about not doing breaking changes. Like there's been a couple of cases where they have done a minor breaking change, but they're not going to change the keyword class or something like that. They're not going to make something that's going to adversely break a lot of people, or just remove a feature. Like dynamic is in there. I personally don't like dynamic, but it's in there. They're not just going to just suddenly remove it. That would break too many people, and I get that, but there's a tension there, right? If you keep saying we're never going to break people with new features and new ways of doing things, that makes this library harder, this thing harder to keep up, and it makes it harder to innovate, arguably. But if you break people, just out of nowhere, that can really piss them off, and understandably so. So, that kind of evolutionary approach to code is, I think, it's interesting. It's one that I got to mull over in my mind more, but I think that actually makes the path to allow you to be evolutionary and change your code in a safe-ish way. It helps the user, the developer, transition better into a new way of doing things, and doesn't make that obsolete cutoff that bad. So, yeah, I think that's something that's more appealing. So I think these concepts may start coming into CSLA. It wouldn't be like Ystari, would be a lot of those documents end up being kind of features, and we'd start working on those. Don't know yet. We haven't made any commitments yet, but that actually, it was right at the end of the conversation, and I went, that actually makes that idea more appealing. So we'll see. But that's all I'm going to do for now. And I'll pick up this stuff and other things when I get back from my trip to Ohio, which I also have to admit, it's going to be interesting flying back, because at this point, the government's been partially shut down, and one of the ramifications of that is TSA, and the thing that they're not getting paid, and so TSA employees are not showing up. And surprise, I mean, why would anybody else just say, hey, I'm going to come show up and work for free? You could say, well, this is about security and airplanes and all that other stuff, but it's also somebody's job. And if I'm not going to get paid, why would I show up? So it'll be interesting to see come Friday, as this keeps wearing on, how much more of an issue does this make to get through security? Now, I don't have to, assuming I get home fine, I don't have to fly until early March to go to VS Live Las Vegas, and then MVP Summit 2 weeks later. Hopefully this all gets resolved, but we'll see. I'm thinking of getting to the airport fairly early on Friday, and even I do have TSA pre. I might want to get there really early just to make sure that they only have like one security person and the line is ungodly long, that I can actually get through to my flight on time. So we'll see how interesting Friday gets. So in any event, that's all I'm going to do right now. So thanks for watching. Leave your comments and questions below. See you in the next episode.